Letitia was berating the innocent Haru, telling him not to be reckless as he tried to fight a monster. She insisted that someone like him couldn't possibly handle a monster of that level, so he shouldn't even try to fight it if he didn't know what he was doing. Haru apologized to Letitia, confused as to why he was being scolded for trying to kill the monster. Letitia shot back with a furious expression, saying she didn't want his pathetic apology. If she hadn't come to save him, his head would have been crushed by the monster, just like she'd done to it. The other party members were in awe of Letitia's strength, having dealt with the monster in a single slash. They had expected her to be strong because she was the hero, and her power was on a completely different level. The title of hero was a special one, bestowed upon only a select few. Among them, Letitia was the youngest and most exceptional hero in history, admired not only for her beauty, but also for her boundless kindness, which made her a wonderful person inside and out. Everyone thought that her worrying about someone like Haru could only be something a kind person like her would do, but they realized she hadn't come back since taking Haru to get his wounds treated. They wondered if his injuries were that serious. In reality, it was far worse, as Haru's wounds weren't physical, but were the psychological scars inflicted by Letitia herself. Haru was dealing with her abuse, fully aware that everyone was fooled by her kind facade. He knew no one would believe that her true nature was this terrible, something he had been forced to endure time and time again. She ordered Haru to apologize to her, reminding him that their comrades were waiting and might come to check on them at any moment if they took any longer. Haru was aware that he was the only one Letitia treated so horribly, even though they were childhood friends. He reflected that it hadn't always been like this, but ever since she was chosen as the hero, her attitude toward him had grown colder and colder. He thought she was just blowing off steam. At first, she called him useless and always treated him like an idiot, even though he was always kind to her. She had ordered that his sole purpose in life was to be her shield, and to die in the process for the rest of his life. This hurt him deeply, and this was the moment he realized he couldn't take it anymore. Slowly, Haru got to his feet. She asked him why he was standing up instead of kneeling to apologize to her. Haru was certain he wouldn't endure this torment a moment longer. So, for the first time in his life, he strongly and clearly declared that he refused her order. This left Letitia in complete shock, as she never expected he would dare to resist. He went on saying he wouldn't do anything she ordered anymore and wouldn't take back his words, no matter what happened. At this declaration, Letitia flew into a rage and drew her sword, pressing the tip right against his eye, but Haru stood firm in his decision, not even flinching as she continuously screamed in his face, furious that he had dared to talk back to her. She demanded that he do as she said if he didn't want to be kicked out of the party. However, Haru simply turned his back and walked away. He refused to listen to her anymore, and Letitia called out to him again. This time, he made it clear that he was leaving, just as she'd said, by kicking him out of the party for not following her orders. He was doing just that, and told her that from now on she could report the completion of their quest to the guild herself, which used to be his job. She stood there, completely shocked to see him change so much, as he declared that she and the party were no longer his concern. Letitia repeatedly screamed for him to stop, but Haru just kept walking. An intense pain welled up inside him, but he knew he couldn't go on like this any longer. Haru couldn't listen to her anymore. He couldn't endure it anymore. He couldn't be in the party anymore. Or rather, he couldn't be with Letitia anymore. He had deliberately messed up while dealing with the monster this time, just to see how Letitia would treat him. He still remembered her words about him being just a shield for her, meant to live to serve and die. He knew the Letitia he once knew would never say such things, and that the girl he used to know was gone. This was his farewell to his old party and his childhood friend, Letitia. Afterward, he went to the Adventurers Guild. The guild receptionist was shocked when Haru announced that he was leaving the party, especially since he had been with Letitia for the past 5 years as adventurers. She couldn't understand the reason behind his decision, and Haru simply replied that he had his own reasons, and smiled. He asked if he could leave the paperwork to her, and she understood that she should just do as he asked for now, instead of asking more questions. Haru then asked if there were any quests for a solo adventurer like him. He knew he had been kicked out of the party, but he also understood it was inevitable, especially since Letitia had been treating him so harshly for a long time, which had only gotten worse recently. He figured it wouldn't be strange if her true nature was revealed to everyone at some point. Still, he felt a pang of sadness that he was still thinking about Letitia even when he was finally free. Meanwhile, the guild receptionist told him that she couldn't find any quests for solo adventurers, as right now, there were only quests for parties. Haru wasn't happy about this and wondered what he should do now, since he didn't even have the money to rent a place to stay. Just then, a cute girl who was getting everyone's attention approached him with a bright smile. She introduced herself as Alice, a solo adventurer. She asked if they could talk, and Haru agreed to listen. She said she was also looking for someone to form a party with in order to find a good quest for herself. So she suggested they form a party together. Haru was happy to be asked, but he was really weak and didn't think he'd be of any use to her, which would probably just cause her trouble. Instead, she asked him why he thought that about himself when he used to be in the hero's party. Haru honestly said that he was just a porter for them, which surprised her. She asked again if that was really the case, and he immediately showed her his adventure card. The card clearly stated he was only a level 7 mage. Alice said that was good enough for now, and that they should try taking a quest together. She was somewhat direct with him for some reason, leaving Haru confused as to why she accepted him so easily. She took his hand, saying he probably didn't have any money, so they should just give it a try. In the end, they decided to take on a wolf extermination quest and immediately went into the forest to deal with them. Alice was fearless, even as the wolves charged straight at them, baring their sharp fangs aggressively. She gripped her sword tightly and began to slash at them with her sword techniques. But a wolf attacked her from behind, and just in time, Haru intervened. He was confident that he had protected her, and Alice was happy to realize how reliable he was. After that, she comfortably slashed away at the wolves in front of her, while Haru handled the ones at the rear with his daggers and sword skills. They wiped out all the wolves, and before long, Alice cut down the last one. She let out a sigh of relief after a long fight, saying they had taken down quite a lot of them, which meant they had completed the quest to exterminate the wolves roaming around the city's border region. Haru was happy that he wasn't a burden to Alice, while she had a different opinion. She thought Haru was truly excellent in that last battle. He was very surprised to hear that, as she had just praised him. Alice said that it was a very easy fight, which was only possible thanks to him. The fact that he was so good with a sword despite being a mage, along with his perfectly timed attacks, all made him a true support. She took his hand to thank him for his support, which startled Haru, and he pulled his hand back, saying it was no big deal. She told him he was truly amazing, and that his attacks were clearly those of an expert with years of experience. He was very moved to hear such praise about himself, as he had always been teased or scolded by Letitia whenever he stood in front of or behind her in battles. Haru felt a bit strange and lowered his head, feeling this for the first time in a long while. Alice asked if he was okay, and he replied that it was just that his chest suddenly felt tight. She moved closer, asking if he was sick, but Haru assured Alice that wasn't it. He just laughed it off. However, at that very moment, a large wolf appeared beside them, and Alice sensed its presence. She was horrified by the giant wolf, and it immediately attacked them without giving them any time to react. At the last second, Alice managed to push Haru out of the spot where the wolf was attacking. But her left arm was severely injured in the process. She was bleeding heavily, making Haru worry for her. She told Haru to run, and he was surprised, asking why she would say such a thing at a time like this. Alice's face had grown a bit pale from the blood loss, and she informed him that this monster, a wolf king, wasn't supposed to be here. She had thought about running away with Haru, but knowing the Wolf King would catch up to them, she decided to grab her sword and stand her ground to fight it. She wanted to protect Haru, even if it meant sacrificing her own life. She told Haru that he should run away quickly, because she knew this was too dangerous and would likely lead to her death. However, the responsibility of protecting Haru meant a lot to Alice, since she was the one who brought him here in the first place. But to her surprise, Haru asked Alice why she was panicking at a time like this, when it was just the two of them against a single adult wolf. His face showed that this was nothing out of the ordinary, making her unable to believe his calmness in front of the Wolf King. Haru started to walk towards the Wolf King, and she tried to stop him. But Haru stood firm in front of the monster, asking Alice if she'd ever seen a fully grown wolf like this before. He thought he shouldn't be surprised by the look on her face, since he was also shocked the first time he saw the Wolf King. She asked what he was even talking about in a situation like this, and warned him that the Wolf King wasn't something a level 7 mage could possibly handle. As the monster attacked him, Haru cast a simple fire spell, incinerating the Wolf King's entire existence. When his attack subsided, the ground in his attack's trajectory was also melted by the flames. Haru remarked that this marked the completion of their subjugation quest. He felt like he was the only one who could handle monsters, but decided not to get too full of himself, since it wasn't really that big of a deal. Alice approached him and grabbed his shoulder, completely shocked by what she had just witnessed. He told her it was just a basic level fire spell. She exclaimed in a hushed voice that there was nothing normal about that fire magic. He figured it was no big deal, since the wolf was just a level 5, like she'd said at the beginning of the quest. Alice told him the monster they just faced was actually a different one, a level 30 Wolf King, which even she wouldn't have stood a chance against. Haru was a little confused by that, because he had previously heard Letitia say it was just a mature wolf, a level 5 monster. Around that time, Letitia had mocked Haru for learning fire magic for the first time, and teased that even a child could use a spell like that. Letitia had told him he was an embarrassment to her, so he shouldn't tell anyone about the incident. Haru was deeply shaken as he realized there was no way Letitia didn't know. He understood that she was a hero, admired by all, so different from him, and famous for being an amazing adventurer, which was why he had always believed everything she said, even though she had treated him so badly all this time. Alice called out to Haru, pulling him from his thoughts. Looking back, he realized Alice was seriously injured from the battle. She had told him she would be fine, but to her surprise, Haru told her to stay still and let him use recovery magic on her. Alice stared at Haru, utterly speechless. When Haru finished healing her, he asked if something was wrong or if she was hurting anywhere else. Alice exclaimed, unable to believe that he could use recovery magic. Even though he was just an ordinary mage, she informed him that recovery magic could only be used by adventurers of the priest class. But Haru had never heard that before. He just said that he'd used a basic level spell that any mage could use. Alice realized that Haru's perception was messed up for some reason, and she was stunned by his ignorance. She warned him that there was definitely something wrong with his adventurer card and demanded to see it again. Haru agreed to let Alice see his adventurer card, insisting it was an official one issued by the guild. However, Alice remained skeptical and asked him when he last updated his card. He replied that it had been 5 years since the card was made, and he hadn't updated it since. She couldn't believe it. 5 years without getting it checked was absolutely insane. Haru thought he must have said something weird again. Alice asked him why he hadn't renewed his card in all those years. She decided they needed to head back to the guild immediately. When they returned to the guild, Alice told the receptionist that Haru's adventurer card needed to be renewed. The guild staffer agreed and told her the renewal fee. Alice immediately offered to pay it herself. Haru told Alice that the renewal fee was expensive, so she didn't have to pay for him. Alice replied that it was no problem for her, and that she wouldn't be able to sleep if they didn't get it checked right now. She couldn't fathom how Haru could be so clueless, thinking that killing a wolf king or using recovery magic was a normal thing to do. She also pointed out that they were getting a reward for the quest anyway, but Haru said she shouldn't spend her share on him. She insisted that she was doing this for her own sake and told him he was being too stubborn. Alice smiled and said that he'd saved her life back there, so she asked him to please let her return the favor. She felt that this amount of money wasn't nearly enough to repay him, and that from now on, she should do more for him. Haru felt embarrassed hearing those words from a cute girl like her and lowered his head. Alice teased Haru, asking if he was imagining something weird, and he immediately denied it. The two of them shared a light-hearted conversation and started laughing together. She burst out laughing at how serious Haru was being, and he laughed along, knowing he could be like that sometimes. This felt a little unfamiliar to him, and he realized that he felt very warm being with Alice. They were having a fun time chatting, and Haru was savoring the moment. He wondered how many years it had been since he'd felt so at peace in his life. Then he suddenly remembered something and asked her if renewing his card was really that important, since the fee was really expensive. Alice told him that it was extremely important, as it's an adventurer's identity, and not knowing how strong you are could cause trouble for you later on. Alice couldn't believe he had gone all these years without renewing his card. Haru recalled that in the past, Letitia herself had told him that renewing his adventurer's card was pointless for someone like him and would be a waste of money. She had mocked him for coming so far without knowing his place and always looked at him with disdain. Haru felt he couldn't tell Alice that, so he just said that he only did odd jobs, so getting an evaluation wasn't that important to him. Alice was troubled by his lack of such basic knowledge that an adventurer should renew their card every 6 months. This was the first time Haru had ever heard this, and realized he hadn't even been allowed to do something so important while he was with Letitia. He wondered why Letitia had treated him so badly. Just then, the guild staff brought him his card, and with it, the answer to his question. Alice asked her if the renewal was complete, and the staff member said there was something unexpected on it. Before handing the card to Haru, he read the card and his stats, and realized that he was actually a sage at level 82. The guild staff couldn't believe that Haru had possessed such immense power all this time. For Haru, this was a massive shock, since even the hero, Letitia, was only at level 55. The fact that he was level 82 meant he was even stronger than the hero. Alice wondered if this was even possible, and explained to Haru that Sage was a special class that only a small percentage of people ever achieved. Meanwhile, Haru's world was turned upside down, leaving him feeling empty, as if he hadn't achieved any of it. He couldn't remember when he'd become a sage or even stronger than Letitia. The most shocking question in his mind was whether Letitia had known about his power all along. The guild staff was in shock, Haru was in shock, and so was Alice, as she couldn't understand how Haru's class had changed from mage to sage. She explained that sages were experts who could use any magic they wanted, including healing spells or any other type of magic. This made her understand how he was able to use a healing spell. But even if he was level 82, how could a simple, basic level fire spell be powerful enough to kill a wolf king? Alice noticed Haru standing there silently, with his head down, and she asked him if he was okay. All of Haru's emotions were going numb and haywire at the same time, because he was sure there was no way Letitia didn't know about his power. So why had she lied to him all this time? Haru thought there was no reason for her to do so, since she was the one everyone called special. He also realized that everything he thought was to relieve her stress wasn't actually that at all. Letitia was just taking her hatred out on him. Unable to accept that someone was stronger than she was, Alice called out his name and said she was feeling hungry, so they should go get something to eat. Haru agreed, and they went to a cafe together and ordered their food. Alice ordered generously as a way to celebrate completing their first mission together. Meanwhile, Haru felt dejected and thought that he should tell Alice about his past, since she had come to him when he was in trouble and offered to team up. She had also saved him and been so kind, which made him feel even more that he needed to explain things to her. Alice called out to him and said that he didn't need to force himself to tell her anything. Haru was moved by her words, which addressed exactly what he'd been worrying about. She went on to say that sometimes talking to someone can make things easier, but there are also times when it doesn't help. She was honest with Haru, saying she did want to know about his relationship with the hero, but she wouldn't want to if talking about it would be hard for him. She didn't want Haru to be hurt by dredging up sad memories like that. Haru listened to her and asked if she was really okay with that. Alice replied that she was perfectly fine with it, and told him to stop looking like a lost child. Just then, Haru recalled a memory from his past. When Letitia found him after he had gotten lost, she had led him back home, holding his hand, and promised that she would always be there to protect him. But now, Letitia was like a demon, telling Haru that his only purpose was to be her shield. Haru had always believed that one day, Letitia would return to him, like the childhood friends they once were. And because she was so important to him, he had endured all the taunts and abuse, just with the thought that it would make her feel better. Haru wanted to believe Letitia treated him that way because she was worried about him. But perhaps he was the only one who felt that way. He cried out all the mental anguish he had gone through over the years, and Alice held his hand the entire time he wept. Afterwards, they had dinner and went for a walk. Alice remarked that the dinner was wonderful, and Haru agreed with her, but then apologized for crying in a place like that. Alice assured him that he didn't need to worry about it. This was when she felt it was the right time to ask Haru if he wanted to travel with her from now on. She also wanted to repay him for saving her life, but the real reason she wanted to be with him was because she felt that they would experience good things if they were together. She asked Haru what he thought about this, and Haru bowed his head in thought. Finally, he decided he would answer yes. But before he could speak, Letitia interrupted him. She exclaimed that she had finally found him and was furious, as usual, only with him. Letitia said that he was truly a burden, causing her trouble by running away from the party. She ordered him to hurry back to them if he had calmed down. Haru couldn't believe this, and he began to feel a heavy weight just from having to face her. He just sighed, releasing all his pain instead of worrying about it. Letitia got angry at his indifferent attitude, and Haru reminded her that he was supposed to be kicked out of the party anyway. Instead of letting him leave, Letitia shouted that there was no way he could survive without her, and told him to stop complaining and come back. The next thing she said was another bitter blow. She screamed at him to go back to their master instead of being disobedient, even though he was just a talentless nobody. Haru asked Letitia if it was really okay for her to say such things. Letitia quickly retorted that she didn't care about his opinion. Haru reminded her that she was screaming and saying vulgar things to him in a public place where everyone was watching. Letitia suddenly panicked when she realized it, and people began to whisper to each other, recognizing Letitia, the hero who was rumored to be kind. But she was nothing like what people said. Letitia knew she would be in trouble if this continued, so she leaned in close and whispered in Haru's ear to come to the south gate. Then she left, and Haru was shocked to realize that he had actually said all those things to Letitia. But during that entire time, Letitia hadn't even noticed Alice's presence. Alice asked Haru if the person they had just met was really the sword princess Letitia. She couldn't believe that was the hero he was always with. Haru honestly replied to Alice that everything she'd heard about the hero was true, and added that the attitude they had just witnessed was Letitia's true nature. Alice suddenly realized just how much he must have suffered. Then Haru said it was time for them to find an inn, since it was getting late. Alice felt sad for him, but she still went with him to look for an inn. Finally, they found a place to rest and wished each other good night, promising to see each other the next day. Alice stopped Haru and said that while it might not be her place to say anything, she wanted him to know that he wasn't anyone's property, and to never forget that. Haru was moved to hear these words, feeling truly free, so he thanked Alice for saying them. Then, in the middle of the night, Haru was lying in bed, but he couldn't sleep. He felt a little restless, so he got up and went outside. As he left the inn, Alice seemed to have guessed that he was leaving to meet Letitia. She was worried for him as Haru went to the south gate and confronted Letitia. She yelled at him for being late, and demanded to know who he thought he was to make her wait so long. She asked how he could take the matter of her waiting so lightly and accused him, saying that biting the hand that feeds you wasn't a good look for a servant like him. She called him many other awful things as well. Haru called out Letitia's name, surprising her. He told her that he had always considered her his precious childhood friend, which was why he had always endured all the insults she threw at him. Letitia was shocked to hear him talk back like this. And he made it clear that he didn't remember ever becoming her servant. Haru asked Letitia why she had become this way, but to his surprise, Letitia gave him a cold look and snapped that she couldn't believe he thought they were equals. She said she wouldn't let him get away with defying her. Letitia angrily grabbed Haru by the collar, making it clear that she would not let him leave her, because she believed that only she could save him. Haru didn't understand what she meant by saving him. Letitia's eyes glared at him as if she wanted to kill him, like a demon. With the full intent of controlling him, he remembered the face of his childhood friend, Letitia, and then the face of Alice, who had told him that he wasn't anyone's property. Alice's words opened his eyes and gave him the courage to stand up to Letitia, and he brushed her hand off him. Haru pushed Letitia away and told her clearly that this was his goodbye, forever. The fear in his voice enraged Letitia to the point that she could no longer control herself. She drew her sword, pointed it at him, and warned that he should prepare to lose an arm or a leg. Haru could tell that Letitia wasn't joking, and he braced himself. But in the next instant, Letitia lunged forward with such speed that he couldn't dodge. She unleashed a 3-slash attack, and he remembered that it was a top-tier skill. He quickly did what he could and cast a basic shield spell to block the attack. Surprisingly, his shield not only blocked her attack, but also knocked her back several meters. Letitia couldn't believe he had just stopped a high-level sword skill with only a basic-level defensive spell. She said his magic was just too weird, and that was exactly why she couldn't accept him. Her rage only grew after this exchange. She warned him that next time she would use her full power, so he'd better apologize before he died by her hand. Letitia said that his fire attacks wouldn't work on her either, so he shouldn't get too cocky for defeating a level 30 Wolf King, because he was now fighting a level 55 hero. Haru prepared for the next wave of attacks by creating a counterattack of his own, gathering all his power into a single magic orb. Letitia was stunned by the size and amount of magical energy in that orb. Haru told her that this was the first time he'd ever used his magic seriously, but that it was only fair since she was also getting serious with her next attack. Letitia felt that she might actually die from his attack, and tried to convince him to stop. She accused him of holding back all this time, as she felt goosebumps from what was about to happen to her. Haru didn't care what she said, and he fired his most powerful magic attack at Letitia, causing a massive explosion in the area. When his attack ended, Haru realized he might have gone a little overboard. He called out Letitia's name to check if she was still alive. As the dust settled, he saw Letitia lying motionless in front of him, covered in injuries. He couldn't believe he had actually beaten her. But Letitia insisted she hadn't lost, refusing to accept it. She went on saying that a failure like him could never defeat her. Haru wasn't sure how to respond to her, as she once again called him one of her possessions. He asked her why she would say something like that, despite the fact that he had just defeated her. Haru admitted that if she couldn't even be fair with him after he had defeated her, then he would have nothing more to say to her. Haru felt a deep sadness, for he had lost an important childhood friend, a companion he'd spent 5 years adventuring with. The Letitia he once knew, who had wanted to become a hero alongside him, for whom being together meant more than any title. But now, none of that mattered anymore. He thanked her for everything up until now and said his goodbyes. As he left Letitia lying on the ground, Letitia couldn't help but call out after Haru, telling him he couldn't just leave her. She insisted that if she wasn't there to protect him, he would die. She had this image of him as a weakling in her mind, incapable of doing anything on his own. Or perhaps she was just being toxically possessive. In this moment, she was still lying on the ground, defeated by the very same Haru she had belittled. After that, Haru went to Alice and gave her an official answer that he would love to form a party with her. Alice was overjoyed to hear that and decided they should register at the guild after breakfast. She said she thought she might get rejected. Haru asked her why she thought that, and she replied that it was just her own misunderstanding. Now, they needed to figure out their next plan. She asked Haru if there was anything he wanted to do, and hearing this made him feel so relieved. Because up until now, it had always been Letitia forcing her decisions on him. He told Alice he wanted to get far away from here. Sometime later, Letitia went to the guild to check on Haru's whereabouts. But she received the shocking news that he had gone on a journey. She asked the staff where Haru had gone, but the clerk couldn't disclose details about any adventurer. Letitia thought that Haru surely couldn't have gone too far by himself. Then Letitia suddenly remembered seeing a girl standing behind Haru last night. She started having lewd thoughts that Haru and that girl might be having fun together, which felt like a knife twisting in her gut. Letitia cried out in despair, wondering what Haru was doing right now. As she began to search for him, the guild staff whispered that there was a carriage about to leave for Orlando from the west gate. Letitia heard her words clearly and asked if it was really okay to reveal the movements of other adventurers, which was clearly a violation of the guild's rules. The guild staff member replied that she was just talking about the location of a carriage, and reminded Letitia that she might not remember, but she was the one who had issued adventurer cards to both of them. She recalled when she was a trainee, Letitia and Haru had come to register as adventurers. They had thanked her for her help with the documents, and the guild staff member asserted that she was just a guild receptionist, but she wanted to tell Letitia that she and Haru used to get along so well in the past. She thought it would be better if they talked to each other about the problems between them. Letitia smiled back at the receptionist. After leaving the guild, she remembered that everyone around her helped her because she was the hero. So, as she had told herself before, the one who was wrong all along was actually Haru, and she wouldn't let him get away with it. An expression like a demon on her face. Meanwhile, Haru and Alice were on their journey in a carriage. Alice was enjoying the pleasant weather. Haru asked Alice about the city of Orlando, and she said she had never seen it before, but Orlando was famous for being a fortified city where the Lord's daughter was a saintess candidate. Haru didn't know what a saintess was, and she explained that a saintess is a character class only for those who have received a message from an oracle. She said that they can use all kinds of healing magic, and if at maximum power, they can even resurrect the dead. Haru was amazed by the power of a saintess. Alice was happy and proud of herself for cutting his hair. Like a professional, she said that the hairstyle really suited him and was much better than his previous one. She asked if he had ever had a haircut, and Haru replied that he used to think he was ugly and not easy on the eyes. He asserted that he wasn't complaining about her haircutting skills. Alice then eagerly handed Haru a mirror and asked if he had ever looked in one. He realized that she could be scary sometimes. Then Alice asked who had told him he was ugly. He told her about the times Letitia had called him unsightly, saying he should grow his hair long to hide his ugly face. Alice couldn't believe Letitia would say such a thing, and couldn't understand why he would accept it. Haru told her that Letitia was an incredibly talented adventurer, even if she was a bit warped now. He had always believed she was right since they were children. Alice couldn't stand hearing him talk about Letitia anymore, so she exclaimed Haru's name in disbelief. Alice told Haru that he should have more confidence in himself, that he was stronger than he thought. This was the first time Haru had ever heard that, and he asked her if he was strong just because he was a level 82 sage. Alice said that wasn't what she meant, and reminded him of the moment he had saved her life. She said he could have abandoned her and run away, but he didn't, which meant it was much more important to have a strong heart. Haru felt good hearing these words, and she again said that he was really strong and cool. He just replied that he helped her because he thought the monster was only a level 5 monster. Alice called him stubborn for not believing in himself even now. Suddenly, a loud noise erupted from somewhere around them. Haru and Alice quickly checked outside to see if it was a monster attack, and they discovered smoke rising in one area. At that location, The butler, Nine, was protecting Lady Ange. Nine asked Ange to stay back, as she was fighting some monsters with fire magic attacks. They thought they had defeated the monsters with that attack, but the opponents were actually death ants, which have a high resistance to magic attacks. Nine told Ange to run with the guards while she distracted them. She refused to leave Nine, but the other guards pulled her away, saying that Nine was only level 33 and she was the only one among them who could fight against those death ants. Ange cried, not wanting to leave Nine alone, because the death ants were actually level 45 monsters. The death ants attacked Nine, and she managed to dodge them by using her twin ray magic. But to her surprise, the attack didn't even leave a scratch on the ants' bodies. The death ants counterattacked, and Ange couldn't bear to see Nine get hurt like that. So she ran to Nine's side while crying and told her to pull herself together. Nine said that she couldn't stay here, and just then, a death ant appeared behind Ange. They were in trouble, and she prayed for salvation. Right at that moment, a fire magic attack hit the death ant, saving them both in the process. They never expected to be saved this way, making Nine wonder if that last fire attack was high-level magic. Then Ange saw Haru running over, asking if she was okay. Nine scolded Haru for being a bit reckless with his previous attack, as it could have hurt Ange. Ange asked Haru if he was the one who used magic to save her, and he admitted he was. He offered to heal her right now. When he saw she had a cross-shaped necklace, Haru felt drawn to her. She immediately asked who he was, and then Nine stepped between them. After Haru healed their wounds, Ange apologized for having spoken to him so informally. Afterward, she sincerely thanked him for saving them and asked if she could know their names. Haru introduced himself and Alice, while Ange continued to stare at him without blinking. Haru felt nervous about it and asked Alice if he was being stared at because of his pained expression. Alice told Haru that wasn't it, and then Nine asked Ange to stop staring and introduce everyone. Ange apologized for not introducing herself and formally introduced herself as Ange Autumn, daughter of Lord Orlando and a saintess in training. Nine was her personal attendant. Haru was excited to meet the one chosen by the Oracle, as Alice had mentioned, which confused Ange to see that he knew about her. He complimented her on being an amazing saintess, specializing in recovery. But she humbly denied it, saying she still had much to learn. Nine was still looking at Haru, and he noticed it too, until Nine became certain that they were adventurers. She asked if they were in a hurry. Haru replied that they weren't. At that moment, Nine asked if he would accept a request to accompany Ange on her pilgrimage. Ange was surprised to see Nine make such a proposal, and Haru asked what a pilgrimage was. Nine explained that a pilgrimage is a journey to become a true saintess. Haru asked Alice what they should do now, and Alice said that their carriage had probably already left, so they should listen to Nine's request. Nine was grateful for their help and explained that there were many heroes' tombs scattered in different locations, and Ange needed to visit all of them to pray. However, the difficult part was that the heroes' tombs were all in remote areas. For instance, the next place they were heading to was the summit of the Crest Mountains. Haru wondered why there would be a tomb in a place like that. Alice explained that heroes were the ones who sealed demons to save the world, so their tombs were built on sacred mountains and worshipped from there. Haru was reminded of Letitia upon hearing the mention of heroes, and he felt sad again having to think about her. Despite that, she continued, saying that was all the information and that having excellent adventurers like Haru would bring them peace of mind. Nine asked Haru what he thought about it, and he said he wasn't sure if someone like him would be useful to them. Nine reminded him that he had just wiped out a swarm of dead ants with a single attack. And after that, he told Alice that he had accepted the quest. Alice affirmed that he did the right thing, as it would be difficult to continue on foot from here. Ange apologized to Haru for the sudden request and promised to thank him properly when they returned to the autumn home. Haru told her he didn't need that. But Alice called Haru back to tell him that refusing thanks from important people was disrespectful and could cause them to lose face if he declined. Haru didn't realize that speaking so formally to Ange could cause trouble. Ange then encouraged Haru, telling him he could speak to her informally. In return, she asked if he would be okay if she also addressed him casually. He confirmed that it was perfectly fine, and said that from now on, he'd be in her care. This made her flustered because he was too close, and she liked the way he smiled at her. They went back and forth for a while, asking each other to speak informally. By nightfall, they had set up camp and stopped the carriage. Nine informed Haru that they would reach the Crest Mountain's peak the next day, but would have to continue on foot since the carriage couldn't go up the mountain. Haru asked Alice if that was okay, and she was perfectly fine with anything as long as she was with him. Afterward, Haru praised Ange, saying she was truly amazing for undertaking this pilgrimage. Flustered, Ange replied that she wanted to become a true saintess and be able to help the people of Orlando. She said her father couldn't spend much time with her because he was busy with work, but the people of Orlando had always treated her well, so she wanted to repay them in any way she could. Haru was genuinely surprised that she could use such powerful magic at her age, but to her greater surprise, he said that he had only used basic fire magic before. Nine couldn't believe it and thought he was joking. Haru didn't understand why they were reacting that way. Alice explained to Haru that fire magic could normally only be used at close range to attack enemies. He was shocked to learn that this was the proper way to use his magic, and asked Alice why his fire magic was different. She had been meaning to ask that very question, and Nine confirmed that Haru was full of surprises. She said that having such fire power at his age was truly an incredible achievement. Haru asked Nine if she could teach him how to use fire magic like she did earlier, as he wanted to learn more spells. Currently, he only knew 3 basic spells: recovery, defense, and fire magic. His words shocked all of them, as they realized there were so many things wrong with him. Alice exclaimed, asking how he managed to travel for 5 years as an adventurer, knowing only 3 basic spells. Alice said that Haru should have been able to learn 1 or 2 more spells in that time. Haru replied that he had been teaching himself magic, but Letitia had come and taken his spell book, saying that learning magic was pointless for a handyman like him, so he should just chop firewood. That was why Haru was only able to learn basic level spells. Alice felt great sympathy for him and asked if she could give him a hug. Nine realized he had complicated reasons behind his ineptitude, so she told him she couldn't guarantee how much she could help, but she wouldn't mind teaching him fire magic. Haru was overjoyed to hear that, and Nine said she would certainly listen to a request from the person who helped them. Not only that, but she was also excited to teach him. Ange remarked that Haru was a young man with a lot of potential. She told him that Nine was actually the head butler of her family, so she might be a slightly strict teacher. Then Nine began to teach Haru the basics. She said that magic was like a puzzle, so he had to turn the magic into an optimal piece. Additionally, there were many different factors and combinations, depending on the magical density, distance, and trajectory. Among those, he just needed to concentrate on all of these, because otherwise the spell would collapse and fail to activate. She instructed him on how to accurately determine all of these factors during casting. She explained fire magic, saying she was trying to perform it as slowly as possible, then asked Haru if he could see clearly. Haru agreed that he could grasp some of it and tried to use it, but Alice quickly covered his mouth to stop him. She made him promise that the first time he used fire magic, he would hold back as much as he could. Haru agreed to the promise. Nine said that it usually takes a month to learn fire magic, so it couldn't be learned immediately. But Alice believed Haru could do it right now, so she told him not to use it here, or else he might blow up the entire place. After that, they safely reached the entrance of the hero's tomb without facing any monsters along the way. Alice was glad they hadn't run into any trouble, while Ange asked Nine if she was all right. Nine replied that it was nothing. It was just that this place was too quiet. Haru asked them how to open the door, and Nine said that a saintess needed to touch the door to open it. Afterward, they entered the holy ground, and Nine also informed him that after a certain amount of time, the seal on the door would reactivate, trapping anyone who remained inside. They were shocked to see Ange being so calm about such a thing during her pilgrimage. As they went deeper inside, they soon saw a coffin up ahead. Ange asked everyone to wait while she continued from here. She approached the coffin, clasping her hands together to begin her prayer. Just then, the light from the pilgrimage began to shine around Ange. All the light emanating from the pilgrimage was absorbed by Ange, and Haru understood the meaning of the saying that a saintess receives power during her journey. After a while, she finished her prayer and apologized for making everyone wait so long. But as she walked down the stairs, her foot slipped, and Haru quickly caught her to keep her from falling. Haru asked if Ange was okay, and she felt flustered being so close to him. Ange felt like she was about to faint, while Nine told her to calm down. Alice whispered that she'd noticed Ange seemed determined from the start, so she asked Nine if she made that request after seeing that Ange had feelings for Haru. Nine was surprised by Alice's sharp perception and said she was worthy of being a saintess. But Nine didn't want Ange to sacrifice herself for everyone's sake. She wanted Ange to feel like a girl before becoming a saintess. And Alice could sense the pure intentions behind Nine's reasoning. After their work here was done, Nine sent a messenger to the castle to prepare for a party. Then suddenly, a giant dragon appeared before them, declaring that there were still some lowly rats alive, which meant the dragon had already killed some people. In the dragon's presence, everyone except Haru shuddered, unsure of what to do now. Meanwhile, back in Orlando, Letitia had apparently arrived there to find Haru, but she was angry to find him nowhere in sight. This made her guess that he might be wasting time on his way here. She wondered if she should start looking for him along the old path, and thought about why she was acting like such a fool for Haru. Just then, a man behind her informed everyone that a dragon had appeared in the Crest Mountain range. Everyone knew this was a bad omen, as Ange was there to make her pilgrimage. They considered sending some high-level magic users. But another person pointed out that dragons have magic resistance in their scales. So for now, all they could do was inform Ange's father about what was happening. Letitia wasn't very interested in the incident until she heard that a male mage using fire magic with insane power was also present with the ants. Hearing this, Letitia immediately took off running, thinking she'd have to deal with Haru's mess yet again. She ran nonstop, telling herself that he shouldn't be doing such pointless things. She thought that everything would be fine if Haru would just listen to her. She decided she wouldn't let anyone oppose her this time because of that idiot Haru. But suddenly, a thought flashed through her mind. She stopped and tried to think about why she wanted to become a hero. She recalled that since she was a child, she had always wanted to be a hero. But now, Letitia wasn't sure why. She tried to remember, but then a splitting headache hit her, and she fell to her knees, clutching her head in her hands. She remembered that every time she tried to recall this specific reason, her headache would return. She didn't understand why this was happening. In her mind, the thoughts of protecting Haru were slowly turning into a desire to control him, no matter what. Her way of thinking was being influenced by something, making it hard for her to think clearly. She wondered how long this had been going on and recalled that she'd had this feeling ever since defeating the Demon King. Then a dark creature rose from her shadow and pierced her. This wasn't a physical attack, but a psychological one meant to take over her thoughts, sending her mind into chaos. When things settled down, she came up with the idea of locking Haru away. This time, it seemed Letitia had been controlled by something all along, which had caused her to hurt Haru without even realizing it. She decided to head to where Haru was. Meanwhile, at the hero's pilgrimage gate, the dragon was trying to attack them with its tail. Haru said it was his first time seeing a dragon and asked Alice if they were different from other monsters. Alice replied that dragons are completely different creatures. She said that monsters are loyal to demons, while dragons are a proud race that serves no one. She told them they needed to escape, and that she would use a flash bomb first to stun the dragon, creating an opening. She asserted that this would be very difficult, and Nine responded by telling them about something she'd read in a book. The dragon outside was a superior ancient dragon, so it would definitely have excellent magic resistance, making things like flash bombs useless against it. The dragon itself told them they were right not to try and fight it. It went on to say that neither magic nor swords would work on it. So the only thing left for them was death. The dragon offered them a choice, whether they wanted to be swallowed whole or eaten piece by piece. Alice, Nine, and Ange were all terrified by the threat of the ancient dragon. But surprisingly, Haru stepped forward and calmly greeted it, asking if he could talk to it. Alice cried out at what he was doing, but he continued to speak to the dragon, saying that if it could use human language, he'd like to try talking. He apologized if this area was its territory and they had entered without permission. But he told the dragon they had business related to the hero's tomb and would leave right after, so they could just forget this whole incident. Surprisingly, the dragon listened to Haru carefully and started to laugh. It found it interesting that Haru spoke so calmly to it as if they were equals. This was the first time it had met a human like Haru. The dragon then moved closer and realized Haru was a mage. It proposed a bet with him, that he would have to attack it with all the power he had. If Haru could make it falter, the dragon would overlook the fact that someone had come here today. Haru agreed to the bet, while the dragon felt sorry for him, thinking Haru would struggle a lot. However, to the dragon's surprise, Haru used fire magic to attack it, which confirmed Alice's suspicions that he was indeed capable of firing off that spell. Haru asked the dragon about his attack, as the dragon felt the pain from the blow. Alice was shocked to see the dragon was still alive after taking Haru's magic head-on. Nine was also surprised by the dragon's magic resistance, even though its scales were burned in the process. The dragon thought it was going to die and couldn't help but feel shocked, wanting to know more about Haru. Haru then called out to Alice and thanked her for her advice, thanks to which he was able to perform this magic attack. He looked at her with a bright smile, thanking her for the tips. Then, Haru apologized to the dragon and announced that he had promised his companions he would hold back as much as possible. At first, the dragon was very surprised to hear that. Then, Haru declared that he wanted the dragon to forgive his last attack and that he wanted to try again with his full power. The dragon now felt terrified of Haru's power, so it bowed its head to the ground to apologize to him. Haru asked the dragon why it was burying its head in the ground, and the dragon replied that it was just a little too confident. It explained that people usually run away as soon as they hear about the legendary dragon, so it thought it would go around and have some fun with humans. But the dragon never expected a human like Haru to appear. Haru didn't understand why the dragon felt like it was about to be killed, but he felt sorry for scaring it so badly. The others behind him were all stunned, only knowing that Haru was at least stronger than an ancient dragon. Haru told the dragon that he didn't mind what it did, as long as the dragon had realized its mistake. Hearing his kind words, the dragon was moved. The fact that Haru possessed great power, but not being arrogant is truly respectable in the eyes of a dragon. The dragon then apologized for attacking him so suddenly and for acting like a bad dragon, doing unworthy things. Haru then introduced himself to the dragon and asked for her name. The dragon revealed that her name was Sana, and declared that she wanted to become Haru's disciple. Haru wasn't ready for such a sudden, self-proclaimed disciple and tried to refuse the ancient dragon, saying it was impossible. Sana thought he was objecting only because he didn't want a dragon as a disciple, so she transformed into another one of her forms. The form Sana transformed into was actually very human-like, and she asked Haru if there shouldn't be a problem now, right? He was very surprised to learn that dragons could take human form. Sana explained that it was one of a dragon's abilities. Now that her size was smaller, Sana bowed her head again and asked Haru to be her master. He tried to stop her, then turned to Alice to ask what they should do. Alice placed a hand on her forehead, saying she didn't know what to do in this situation. While Haru was at a loss, Sana was begging him to take her in, and she was willing to do anything in return. He told her it was impossible. Sana immediately replied that she would become his slave if she couldn't be his disciple. At that moment, Letitia appeared and saw. She just stared at them until they noticed her. Then, Haru asked Letitia why she was here. Letitia asked Haru what he was thinking, trying to make a little girl his slave. He realized that Letitia wasn't entirely wrong, except she didn't know the reality of the situation. He explained that it was just a misunderstanding, but Letitia didn't want to hear any of it, and even brought up his change in hairstyle. Santa asked Haru who Letitia was, but he couldn't give a straight answer. Then, he remembered something and asked Letitia why she was following him when they had already settled things with a duel. She exclaimed that she wouldn't count that match and called it invalid. Seeing the situation getting worse, Alice decided to do something and called Sana over, then whispered something in her ear. Sana giggled and then said out loud that Letitia was actually in love with her master, making both of them angry. Sana declared that Letitia seemed to like him so much that she bullied him, even though she was called a hero. She was a human after all. So Haru told Letitia that it wasn't good to push her feelings onto others. When he looked over at Sana, who was also trying to become his student, he made the comparison and realized this really wasn't okay. A hero's stats are all boosted, so you can't judge their strength by level alone. He figured the only reason he won before was probably because Letitia had let her guard down. If she were actually serious, she could easily blow away the entire mountain they were on. So, he assumed that what Sana just said was enough to make her furious. But when he turned to stop Sana, he saw that Letitia's face was bright red. Haru was confused by this and asked her what she had actually said. Meanwhile, Ange asked Nine if they were a tsundere. Sana was by her master's side, and Letitia seemed to be getting along with Sana. Seeing that this could happen, they felt a little worried. As for Haru, after thinking that Letitia was in love with him, he didn't feel happy. Instead, he just had a blank, cold expression, wondering what love really was. He called out to Letitia, and when she turned to look, he told her there was something inside the cave behind them. The others observed Haru acting a bit cold as he led Letitia to believe that if she cleared the area first, she would keep him from getting any rewards from the quests. She ran into the cave, and Angie mentioned that it was about time for the doors to close, and slowly they sealed up, trapping Letitia inside. Alice asked Haru if that was okay, and he replied that it would be fine, since Letitia could probably get out on her own after a few days. Alice noted that Haru had never been like this before, while Sana noticed that her master's expression was extremely cold. So it was best not to make him angry. Alice realized that Sana would definitely be staying, since she didn't leave even after seeing Haru like that. By evening, Ange thanked everyone for a long day and announced they were going to bed, and that there were enough blankets for everyone to ensure no one caught a cold sleeping on the floor. Alice noticed Haru wasn't there, and after searching, she found him sitting alone. She went over to him and told him to let her know whenever he wanted to go somewhere alone, because they were companions. Haru said his head was a mess right now, and then asked Alice that if someone tells them they love them, do they have to accept that person's love in some form? Alice didn't expect him to be thinking about something like that. After a moment of thought, she told him that wasn't the only way in situations like this. The most important thing was his own feelings. Haru remembered how he felt about Letitia in the early days, when he never thought about leaving her. But before he knew it, she had become a completely different person. Now that he was completely over those feelings and had left Letitia, it was ridiculous for her to be following him like this. He didn't know what he wanted to do. Alice understood his situation and said she would always be his ally. But in this one matter, she couldn't help him because she had a secret motive. So she told him to consider thinking about the one and only goal of this journey. Haru asked Alice if that was even possible, and she replied that anything was possible, which is what made the life of an adventurer so great. Since there were no rules when it came to setting their goals, he felt that there was no need to answer right away. And then, out of curiosity, he asked Alice why she became an adventurer. She was a little surprised, since she'd never been asked that before. She told him she didn't have a particular reason, but one of them was to meet someone she wanted to see. Hearing that, Haru felt they should hurry on their journey to find the person she wanted to meet. Alice said that wasn't necessary right now because she was able to meet them around the same time she met Haru. He felt happy for her. Meanwhile, she quickly stood up and ran back, reminding him to be careful not to catch a cold from the wind. He thanked her for her concern, and after she left, he wondered who this person Alice wanted to meet was. Alice realized it was a huge risk saying things like that to Haru, because he was the person she had been looking for a long time. She remembered her past when she first met Haru 10 years ago. Back then, Alice was a cheerful little girl who had just moved to the town where Haru lived. Her parents asked if she was feeling okay, and little Alice enjoyed looking out the window, loving the beauty of the village. Then, she saw her parents helping move things into the new house. Her father told her to go play outside for a bit, and Alice asked her mother for permission. Her mom told her not to go too far and to be back before it was time for her medicine. Afterward, little Alice walked around the village, looking at the river and the trees, enjoying nature, thinking how pleasant the air was. It was the first time she'd been able to walk on her own 2 feet for so long without feeling any pain. She thought that her illness might have been cured in this village. Suddenly, a boy fell out of the tree she was sitting under. The boy was none other than Haru. He asked if she was the new kid who had just moved to town. Alice introduced herself to him, and he did the same. He held out his hand to her, asking if she wanted to play. She still remembered that day clearly, because it was the first time she and Haru had met. The young boy, Haru, asked her if she was there for treatment, and she told him it was because the city was too dusty and made her sickness worse. He asked if she could play games like tag. Seeing no other option, he suggested they take a slow walk around the village, hoping Alice would get better soon so they could play tag together. The little girl smiled at his encouraging words. They walked a lot that day, but because of that, Alice came down with a fever the next day. Because her body was frail, Alice could only go for a walk once a week. She wondered if the friends she had made would start to hate her, and because she didn't want that to happen, she desperately wanted to get better quickly so she could play with Haru. Haru always kept an eye on her condition, and Alice often felt jealous of that attention. She wondered what was happening with Letitia, and remembered that she didn't really play with Letitia. Letitia often complained about her own life, while Alice wished she could hear things like that from someone just once. Letitia thought she was a bit strange, but Alice told her that wasn't true. Back then, Letitia was actually a good person and really wanted Alice to get better soon. After that, they played together, and all of it made Alice happier because she could play with Letitia, as well as with Haru. Alice remembered those moments as the happiest time of her life, and it was the positive influence from both of them that helped her recover from her illness. But their happy days came to an end when Alice was unprepared for what happened next. She started coughing up blood, and soon her hands and the ground where she stood were stained red with it. Haru came to her rescue, and Alice still remembered it was the day of the festival, a day she was so excited for because Haru had invited her. But then she suffered a terrible attack, the likes of which she hadn't experienced since meeting him. Fortunately, some adults were there to help her, and she narrowly escaped death. However, seeing her covered in blood was a horrifying sight for Haru. At that moment, everything came crashing down for her. From that day on, Haru blamed himself, thinking he was the reason her condition had worsened. He was severely traumatized and cried almost every day. He even threw up his food, which made him so weak that his life was in danger. By the time Alice found out about his condition, 2 weeks had passed since the day she collapsed. She asked her parents why they hadn't told her, feeling like she had to go and apologize to Haru immediately to make it clear that none of it was his fault. Her parents told her that Haru wasn't in that state anymore, but if she saw him, there was no guarantee what might happen to him. This meant Alice couldn't see Haru anymore. So she asked her parents about the magic they had been studying to treat her illness until now. They agreed that they had learned a great deal, so Alice asked if they could use some kind of magic to erase all memories of a specific person from someone's mind. They couldn't believe Alice was even considering it, but as soon as she said the words, she felt herself break apart from the inside. She asked her parents to erase all memories of her from Haru's mind, after hearing Alice's sorrowful decision. Her parents tried to make her understand that it was just an accident and no one was at fault, so she shouldn't torment herself over it. Alice still believed that Haru was suffering because of her and felt guilty for hurting her best friend. She begged her parents to listen and help Haru in this way, and after much convincing, they couldn't refuse her request. Their memory-erasing magic worked on Haru, and his health improved, as if nothing had ever happened. Not only that, but Alice also made sure he wouldn't regain his memories by seeing her. So she left the village, feeling the bittersweet pain of having to leave Haru behind. She knew she could never forget her first friend. Alice thought that was all she would ever have left of Haru on the day she departed, and cried for everything that had happened. But she didn't give up, and after a few brave years, she overcame her illness because the desire to see Haru again was her only reason to live. By this point, Alice had completely changed, becoming strong after all those years. She wanted to redo her meeting with Haru so that she could be with him. She realized her decision to erase Haru's memories had been selfish, so she decided to change her hair color with magic and become an adventurer, so she could return to the village in disguise. But when she arrived, she learned that Haru had left with Letitia. As she set out to find him, she also discovered that Letitia had become a hero, which made it easier for Alice to track them down. After some time, she finally found Haru, just as he was at the guild, informing the staff that he was leaving the heroes' party. Alice was stunned to suddenly find Haru, and she turned away, feeling too shy to face him like this after so many years, even though he had no idea who she was. She was also surprised to hear he was leaving the heroes' party, but when she saw him struggling to find a quest on his own, she couldn't stand to watch him have a hard time. She just hoped that Haru wouldn't remember her, so she decided to approach him as a complete stranger. She called out to Haru and introduced herself, asking if they could talk for a moment. She was lost in thought about her story, while Haru watched her, wondering what was on her mind. She asked him if something was wrong, and Haru said he felt a strange sense of familiarity when he looked at her. She became extremely anxious, thinking that changing her hair color might not have been enough. She felt she should have changed her name and face too, but changing one's face was a serious crime. Haru told her the feeling he got was a sense of comfort whenever she was around, because she was always there to save him. Being praised by him put Alice at ease, and she tried to humbly reply that she would always do so. But before she could finish her sentence, Sana interrupted their conversation, saying Haru could depend on her too. Sana had ruined Alice's moment to talk with him, which made Alice so angry she had to clutch her own head. Alice then tried to calm herself down, knowing that she would always be there to save Haru, and that it was what she wanted to do as a form of atonement, because Haru was also her reason for living. She also had to deal with the problem of Letitia, who used to get along so well with Haru. Alice couldn't understand why Letitia was acting that way towards Haru, and her obsession with him was just not normal. She couldn't help but wonder what had happened to Letitia while she was away. Afterward, they could see the city of Orlando, and Haru was amazed to see that the entire city looked like a castle. Then, someone called out to Nine, and she realized it was a servant from the Autumn household. She asked him what was wrong, and the servant informed them that they needed to proceed through the city's rear gate, because the situation in Orlando was not good. There were rumors that Ange was using monsters to attack people. Everyone was shocked to hear that, and the one most affected was Ange herself. The servant reported that there were still many who believed in Ange, but the situation within the city was still not good,